I come from a working class family. We lived in a council house. I met my wife when I was 14. We got engaged at 17 and married at 19. And life was very good. We had a good marriage. We had 2 children, a successful business, big house in Essex I had then, and a villa in Spain, and a nice Jaguar car. You know, life was pretty good. My love of sport led me into training with weights, and my love of weights led me into powerlifting. I competed for 30 years. 27 years I competed for Great Britain. I won 9 British titles, 6 European titles, 4 world titles. I was in the Guinness Book of Records, I'm in the Hall of Fame, and again I became successful at that. I started dabbling very, very lightly in drugs. I started taking steroids to fuel the body. I started taking speed and amphetamines to give me a bit of energy and a bit of a kick, and that led me into cocaine. And then I had a cocaine and steroid addiction that nearly ended my life. A friend of mine who's a doctor told me if I continued, I would die. One of the side effects of any addiction is that it changes your way of thinking. Your normal way of thinking becomes distorted drastically. And of course mine did. And I changed. I had an adulterous affair, left my wife, deserted my children, blew my family to pieces. I was in the gym more than I was on site running my business, so I lost my business. Everything I'd ever worked for, I lost in 4 years of madness. I started to work as an illegal debt collector. I started to work on nightclub doors. I started to run this illegal business. I was now running around the streets of the East End of London, fighting almost every day just to stay alive. My drug addiction, like many addictions, also causes depression, and I suffered with depression. I believe fear and paranoia were my best mates for 4 years. I was suffering big time, and I wanted to end my life. I actually tried to take my life on a number of occasions. I tried to cut my own throat, tried to crash the car, tried to overdose, and I tried to drown myself in Tenerife. I went to see a guy to try and get off the drugs, try and get some normality back into my life. This man happened to be a Christian. Now, I knew nothing about God. This was my God. Powerlifting was my God. But I went to this man and he said something to me that has stuck with me. He said, "You need to choose." Choices I was making weren't doing me a lot of favours. And he said to me, "You need to choose." He didn't patronise me or talk down to me. He didn't try to Bible bash me. He just listened and said, "Arthur, you need to choose." On a freezing cold March morning, I stood in a car park at Spitalfield Fruit and Veg Market. And I remember standing there thinking, what a mess my life is in. And I remember just looking up saying, you know what, if there's a God, come and sort me out. There was no booming voice, no choir of angels, no opening of the heavens. But something happened deep inside that is very, very, very difficult to explain. But for the first time in 4 years, that fear and that paranoia left me. I remember stopped my drug addiction that morning. I started to go to church. I started to read my Bible. I started to pray. I started to get in fellowship and friendship with people that started talking to me about God. But then they told me about Jesus. But I believe from that moment I cried out to God and I put my trust in Jesus Christ that my life started to change. And whether you choose to believe, to a point, as far as I'm concerned, is irrelevant, because this is the truth of my life. Whatever anyone says, whatever theological debate you want to have, you can go ahead and do it, but no one can argue the truth of my life. From that moment, I cried out to God and put my trust in Jesus Christ. My wife and I had been apart for 4 years. I'd broken her heart and smashed my family to pieces. We got reconciled together and we got remarried in 1993. I now have the love and respect of my children, and I have everything that I need in my life. I even started to compete as a powerlifter again as a Christian. My faith in Jesus Christ has given me these three things. I'm convinced of it, that I do have forgiveness of my past, I have a peace in the present, and I have a hope for the future. It is never too late, ever too late. God will never give up on you. Never given up on me. It's never too late, but you have to choose. And I believe if he can change me, he can change anyone. The choice is yours.